what role has healing taken on for you? And I can maybe pass it to Donnie first to get us going. You're muted, Donnie.
Lovely. So, right. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, Alicia. What was the question again?
Sorry, it was what role has healing taken on for you?
Yeah, I often think about my grandmother who she passed when I was 12. She passed into the spirit world, and since then we've become very close, and she comes to me often. And I have a really, really big whānau, a really big family. I think I've got about something like 300 first cousins. And out of everybody, she chose me. She gave me the rākau, or a wero, or the privilege, I suppose, of trying to heal our people. And I didn't really understand what that meant. But I have, as I've gotten older, tried to sort of, fumble my way through life and live up to this wero that my grandmother had given me. And so psychotherapy is like a vehicle for me to I guess to legitimize what it is that I do in the Pākehā world, or in the white world. Although, the way that I work is very Māori, it's very Māori centric. And so what I kind of notice, because we've been colonized, much like Turtle Island, that there are a lot of things that there's a lot of disconnection and displacement and dispossession with our people. And one of the most healing things that I use is language, is our reo, te reo Māori, speaking te reo Māori to, with people that I sit with, teaching them their pepeha, which is like a script of identity, which unites people back to their sacred mountain, and to their sacred body of water that we sort of belong to and identify with, because we believe that we were made from the earth, from clay. So we are tangata whenua, which in Māori means people and land are the same. So there's a proverb that says, ko te awa ko au te awa, ko te whenua ko au te whenua, which means I am the land and the land is me. I am the river and the river is me. So people and land is inseparable. And it's this very interdependent relationship. And so, as people have talked about and shared this morning, the destruction of the earth is a violation of our Earth Mother, and femicide, and the parallels between the destruction of the earth and violations towards women comes from the same place. So in terms of my practice, I need to think about how I can. I think Kathy Richardson talks a lot about truth telling, and being able to revitalize some of our creation stories and some of our cultural heritage, and bringing it to life by way of using language or visual art or songs or whatever way to uphold and uplift and celebrate cultural pride. So so that's probably center in terms of my work that I do. And I find it's, as I get older, I'm finding that it's becoming more and more of a privilege, and I just kind of, you know, swell with emotion when I see that people are able to walk this journey of reconnecting back to their sacred mountain and their families and their culture and the richness of that. So yeah, so that's really lovely. I'm also really conscious of how I need to navigate safety as well in those spaces with certain sort of, you know, contractual obligations that I might hold in terms of my practice. And so sometimes it's I have to be really selective around how much I fully disclose in terms of what I do, because the type of therapy I do isn't constricted to just a small office space and limited just to talking, but we will go, for example, we'll go to the river, and we'll do a horoia puria, which is like a cleansing ritual in the water, where we'll use the vibration of the water and stones and do some kind of like sacred chanting and things like that, which is really sort of, you know, you won't find that in a psychotherapy textbook, but it's something that's very sort of a very embodied, somatic, experiential way of reconnecting people back to culture by actually taking them into nature and doing things like that. So so yeah, that's just an example. Yeah, I hope I answered that question okay.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for sharing. I think there's also no right and wrong way to answer this, you know, and I think just, you know, what you are like sharing with us is just absolutely amazing. And I just thank you so much for it. I think actually Kathy wanted to share a reflection on what you were saying, and I think touched upon her own healing.
Yeah, so one of the most powerful memories that I have with you, Donnie, is the night when we went out to celebrate Matariki. And many of you know that Indigenous people have a relationship with the stars, the star people, and the Pleiades. But in Aotearoa, New Zealand, they've actually made a national holiday to celebrate our connection to the Pleiades. So it was a dark night and we were driving out near the sea and actually parked on a kind of military base that they had taken over the land, because we had an excellent view of the sky. And so just to be there and to acknowledge not only you know, our relationship with the cosmos and the stars and the moon and all the healing powers of enjoying and taking in the night, and this light that's radiated back towards us on earth. It was a really special time. And so I love it when you talk about, you know, Mother Earth, Father Sky, and all these sacred relationships. And I was just really impressed that you know, your government made a holiday so that we can all acknowledge that together. It seemed pretty profound. And then you taking me on this experience of the earth and the fire going to Rotorua, where the whole town is bubbling and steaming and you can't step in the wrong place or you'll actually get, you know, sucked under into this lava. Seeing the world so alive and through your eyes and through the healing areas for the Maori people, and being invited into a number of your marae so that I may go back as a honorary community member, to sit with your people and hear their teachings. Just really a profound experience for me, and vibrates so much more fully and strongly than what we share as psychotherapists in that kind of Western model. So the spirit is alive, and I'm grateful for that which connects us across this world and across these different cultural communities.
Yeah, kia ora, yeah, that was a beautiful experience. I remember it being really, really cold, and Rupert was with us, and he wanted to take some photos of the night sky. So we parked up for about an hour and just admired the sky. Yeah, I think that the earth is just so alive, and when we seek to listen, we can hear, but we need to listen. And Tawhiri Mātia, who is our atua, or our ancestor of wind, that night was out and about and reminding us that that we needed coats because it was such a cold evening. But there's all of these sort of like small but significant things that tie into our creation stories that kind of remind us of who we are and how we kind of connect and to the earth and also to each other. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kathy.
Yeah, and it reminds me of what Charlie said too, or kind of implied that all the elements can be used for healing, like the fire and what's under the earth, and it can also be used to cause great harm to us. And so we have to make sure we have the teachings and the tools and the good intention, the right mind and spirit to work with light and fire and water, and handle this in a good way. So I would just like to say a little bit about the book that I created recently, Facing the Mountain, Indigenous Healing in the Shadow of Colonialism. And although it is a book for helpers and healers and counselors, it's based on my personal experience and my family's experience with living in Uranium City, and our interaction as Indigenous people in certain communities with uranium and with radiation, and these things that can be so powerful and so harmful. So I document my own journey through illness and back to health, and talk about Mother Earth, and yeah, how when these kinds of things get in the wrong hands, such as the Black Rock, we can make atomic bombs and nuclear bombs. We can blow people up and cause great destruction, or we can follow our teachings and prophecies and leave the rock in the earth. And so a lot of my focus recently in my inner work and my healing has been how to acknowledge and work with these tools appropriately and carefully, because once you get sick, ironically, you have to turn to nuclear medicine if they put you in a hospital, and then you're dealing also with radiation and chemotherapy and another side of this rock, this radium, and the energy that's released. So it just prompted me to keep thinking about Mother Earth and what we're doing, and pipelines. And part of my own healing process is about supporting water carriers and the Wet'suwet'en and the people that are really on the front lines saying, no, you're not going to build this pipeline here. We've had enough, or these are our sovereign territories. No, you can't build a condo development here. These are our ancestral graves. And I think there's something empowering about activism, not acting alone, but being part of communities that prepare and take a stand together. And I'm at the point in my own age and health when I don't typically go on protests because I can hardly walk. I limp around, and I support in other ways and try to facilitate opportunities for strengthening and collective action and organizing and bringing people like you together, so we can all do this work together in mutual care and safety. But if you're interested in learning more about my approach, I'd also encourage you to look at the book, because I talk a lot about the things I just mentioned, about the earth, about wellness, illness, healing, and how to support other people through that kind of journey when they do have cancer or a serious illness. How to talk about it. One of the things I really wrote about is whenever you hear somebody say that they're sick or they have cancer or someone has cancer, they typically use the metaphor of a fight. Oh, you can win the battle, and I'm at war with my body. And I tried to introduce a lot of other gentle ways to talk about how we can view this. It doesn't have to be a war. It doesn't have to be a fight. And I've spoken with elders who have said, every morning when I get up to take my pill, I don't, pray to the pharmaceutical companies. I hold my pill up to the creator, and I thank him for my life. And I thank that this pill will help me to be well. And for me, I acknowledge that what's inside this little capsule is made from roots and mud and earth and trees and plants. It's all natural materials. It's just that somebody co-opted it and packaged it in a certain way. And that I can align with my medicines to strengthen me. I'm not just a passive recipient. With my mind and my intention and prayer, I can actually shape and influence how something will interact with my body and my spirit. So that's what I would like to share right now. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Alicia, to give some time to our honored guests.
No, thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much for sharing, and I'm so happy also as well that I get to kind of join you on this journey as well, and through all these amazing things that you're doing. And I absolutely love also just seeing the relationships between also all of you, and the way that you've all been able to grow together. And I absolutely love this. And I will now, hopefully before we lose you, Charlie, I will also pass it back to you. And we are speaking on like the role that healing has taken on for you. So if you would like to share.
All right. I've been on a healing journey for myself for, I guess, maybe all of my life. As a young boy, I grew up on a farm, and I grew up on a farm, and for a good part of my early years, we had no electricity. We had no running water. I was very familiar with the old buck house at the back of the yard, and all of those things. We had a well. We were farmers, and we did a lot of the work of the farms. And my parents, even in my time, they weren't traditional people. They were church people. And, but they were old-fashioned people. They had old-fashioned ways of being honorable. My father was a real honest man. He worked hard, and if he owed a penny, he felt bad. And he always paid his bills, and he worked for his children. And even when he was hurting, he had a broken back at one time, and he worked his way through it. And he used to jump in a car every winter and go to New York City and work in New York City and suffer because he had 6 children to feed, and he suffered through that. And my mother, well, she raised 6 children, and she took care of the farm and fed the animals and all the things that she had to do on top of the raising of children. She was a tough lady. But anyway, the long story getting shorter, I guess, is we were brought up with old-fashioned ways. But one of the things that my parents, they were both fluent speakers. But one of the things they did is they talked to each other in a language, but and they talked to us in a language, I guess, but they never were very forceful or strong that we had to speak back. And so in our household, we grew up speaking English. They would speak to each other in the language, and they would never say to us, well, the language is important. And so even up to my brothers and sisters, many of us, we grew up without much language. The foundation was there, but we didn't know, we couldn't speak. And I grew up that way, where I had no language. I guess I dabbled here and there and had words, but no consistent language. And so, we were always kind of like forced to go to church when I was a kid, but I never really felt comfortable there. There was nothing there that drew me to that. I went because my parents took me. And then there came a time, when I grew of my own mind. And I used to be a runner.
If you would like to take it away, and the role that healing has taken on for you.
Who are you asking? Me?
You, Joseph, sorry.
That's a big question. I guess it requires a big answer. And I'm a pretty big guy. So. Over the last, since the pandemic, the things that have come to mind, is I need to breathe. So I've been breathing a lot. I've been walking a lot. So don't forget to breathe. I used to do yoga, and I dropped out for a while, and then I got back into it, so I really watching my breath. And so to me, that's one of the things that has helped greatly is to get back into the body. We weren't able to go out to the sweats as much, this past couple of years. It's really scary when people come out of the sweat lodge and then all of a sudden they have COVID, and then all of a sudden they die. That's enough to terrify anybody, because it could be your friend, your brother, your mother, your auntie, or it could be anybody. And that's been happening lately in this territory over here. So healing is at different levels. Healing can come from, dying, right? Death could be the greatest healer. And in our understanding, Kree way of knowing and Kree way of seeing, being. You have to take that into consideration, that we have a limited life. An old man used to tell me, "Moya get the beams to know." Said we're not in our own control of our own life. We want to be. There's a real fine line between that connection between the physical and the spiritual. And when you enter that place, and your body is compromised, whether it's karmic or past down when you did something, or maybe it's something that's says it time's up, Joseph, time's up. You got about another 5-10 years, when that time comes up, there's something that happens in the healing process. It just starts to trigger certain emotional places, where you need to get on, we need to start doing things that are important, things that are really critical that we need to be tending to. That's what that space in between the physical and the spiritual is. It's a very, some people don't get there. Some people just bang, they're gone. They're hit by a vehicle. Like my auntie one time, she didn't have a chance, because alcohol was the culture of the day, let's just say, back in the 70s when I was going to, going to school, high school and elementary school, right from the 60s to the 70s. I saw so much, I wouldn't call it healing, but a lot of maybe colonization and genocide, that kind of death, So people were just dying left and right back then. And here we are back again. And as an elder, emerging elder, someone in that place of helping others, I'm also compromised, but yet somehow the things that I've done, whether I've gone into Buddhist studies or whether I've gone into ceremony to sweats and to sun dances and being a helper in the ceremonies for many years, being a storyteller, being a musician, all that plays into my healing, like the place of healing in it. I understand it. It's just so multi-faceted. It's just unbelievable where when you ask about healing, you're not just, it's not a simple answer that one can give. It's a very complicated question that you're asking. But in the short run of it all, the things that have helped me, for example, were physical things at this point in my life. I have to move. One of the codes of conduct is move. You have to act. And of course, you have all these calls to action. And so people are called to action, right? You've got to, in order for this nation to heal, whether it's indigenous or non-indigenous, colonized or indigenized or genocide, everyone must heal. Not just one human being, not one just race of people. All human beings have to heal. And that's how I understand it, and that's a really complex, to me, that's a very complex way of being, because we get attached. It's so easy to get attached to our past, We can't move, so, because we get locked into the past. Something locks us back in there, is feeling bad, that the churches, the institutions, the government, businesses, everything, capitalists, wealthy, all of that plays into this healing. We have to really come to terms to what it actually is in order for healing to begin or continue. So that's what I've been going through in the last couple of years. Really processing and thinking about this stuff. I just to me it all plays a part in it. So I continue with like recently I had a hernia operation. And I was holding off, and my partner kept saying, "You got to do it. It's going to kill you." And I just kept putting it off for year after year. And then finally, I decided to do it. Just, oh, there I go. I'm going to go under the knife of colonization again. Oh, I'm going to go through genocide. I'm going through all these feelings and thoughts, of resentment and anger, and of distrust. I still go through that, but as soon as I made the decision, and then it was clear that that was the right decision to make. Otherwise I'd be more compromised. My physical body, my movement, it was already getting really difficult to walk as my hernia was just bulging out of my body. It's just what I had to go through during the pandemic. And I was just so fortunate to have that happen so I can recover and just reintegrate back into society, into this world, walking. Like when you get cut into your body physically, it really just messes up with the whole circulation of the body. And that's what I went through. My whole circulatory system just went into lockdown also. So talk about lockdown in humanity, but lockdown in the individual. I got locked down. And I couldn't walk. I couldn't even walk upstairs. I'd walk upstairs and I'd get dizzy because the circulation was not flowing like before, like when I was running. Like I was listening to Charles. I used to run as well, 6 miles a day or something. I would run for a long time. And one time I ran a marathon accidentally. I just went for a short 10-minute run, and all of a sudden I'm caught in this wave of marathon runners, and I'm running. I just thought, oh, what the heck? I'll see how far I can run. I'll just start running, and I kept running, and people were cheering me on. I said, whoa, go for it, you old fella. And I just ran, and they were giving me juice and a little energy thing package in it and water. My kidneys were bulging out, everything. I was just having a heyday that day, trying to make I don't think I ran a marathon, but I ran close to a marathon. By the time I got home, they were wondering what happened to me. I said, where were you? We were waiting for you for breakfast 2 hours ago. But I can't run right now, but I'm walking at least. I'm getting back into the game. So healing is primarily practicing daily, getting up in the morning and doing what needs to be done. And because you're more at home, I've been more at home. I've had time to write. I've had time to write stories or write some of my life experiences, and also I've had time to, smudge. I've had time to clean up my clutter in my home. I just got a bunch of stuff in my place. I got to declutter. So I've been clearing my mind, so I'm really cleaning my mind these days. I'm finally getting down to my income taxes. So healing is very practical for me. It's very real. Those are the things that needs to be taken care of. So that's all I'll say about that. So thank you for asking that question.
No, Joseph. I think you're definitely right that, it is such a big question. And, I think there's so many ways to answer it as well. And thank you so much for all the points, you brought up, even just like, how important the physical is. And, once, one part of us is impacted, it impacts the rest of the rest of our being. And I think especially, in speaking of like everyone, needs to heal, and I think especially, today, I think we're all here as well, all on our own healing journeys. And I think all here as well for even just to begin our own healing or healing together. And I also, now that we have Charlie back, I think Charlie, I don't know if you wanted to continue.
Yeah, sure.
Or take. Perfect. You were on as a kid. You were a
Yeah.
runner.
Anyway, I know I'll make it real a lot faster. I like to tell stories, but it's all, to me, it's all part of the journey. But all the way through, when, healing, and in a sense, in all those times when I was growing up, there was something inside of me, right here inside your chest. They call that sorunke, where your feelings are. There's an emptiness there, where you're not whole, you're not complete. Your identity is lacking, and you're always kind of like, almost like trying to show people what you think you know, but you're trying to hide what you don't know. Everybody, and when I went to college, everybody said, oh, you're a Mohawk. Oh yeah, tell me what it is to be a Mohawk. And I didn't know what to tell them. Well, can you speak your language? I didn't have a language to speak to them. And on it went. Tell me about your songs. Oh, I didn't have that either. Tell me about your ceremonies. I didn't know what to tell them. And all that pain inside that, my feelings was there. And then in those times is when my wife and I met in Detroit, and she's from Ganawage too. She was born in her grandmother's home here. She never went to a hospital. And we were both of that same identity and same mind, that we were searching for this something to make us feel good about who we are. We knew who we're supposed to be or what we think we are, but we don't feel whole inside. And we didn't have language, we didn't have culture. And so in our minds, we worked on a path where we went out once when we got married, and we've been married almost 50 years. But in that journey, we went and we found our way back to our language. And we, we learned, we worked real hard at it. We found our way back to the Longhouse ways. And we've been through so many different things over the years in that path to become a traditional kind of person, I guess. And in that journey of healing, I guess, we went through anger. We went to thinking that power and guns and demonstration or anything was the most important thing to our healing, the fight. And then we went through many other things in that journey. And then we realized that guns don't have a spirit and they only cause harm. And the healing doesn't begin unless you heal here and here inside of you. And the healing is your spiritual identity, to know who you are and become whole. And in that journey, we made our way, and I traveled with a lot of the chiefs and elders, people, and I learned about ceremonies, and I learned about a lot of those things. So in the last 45 years now, all I can go to in this journey is they helped me to come to a time where my identity feels strong, and I feel good now about myself, and I feel at peace. And my family, and now I look at my wife and I, we were involved in immersion programs. Our kids generally have an idea of language. We couldn't teach our children when they were growing up, but now we won't talk to our grandchildren in English. When my first granddaughter was born, before she was born and they got married in Langos, her mother had, her belly was bigger than mine. And when they exchanged baskets, I said to my unborn granddaughter, I said to her, my unborn granddaughter, you're listening to my words, I will give you a gift. I make you a promise that I will never speak to you in English. My granddaughter is going on 22 years of age, and I never talked to her in English. And I'm so lucky and proud that she speaks the language. She's not totally fluent, but we can sit and converse all day. And she knows that the language is inside of her. It's solid inside of her. And she believes that it's important and valuable. And the rest of our grandkids, we don't talk to them in English. So it's getting more and more solid here. That's what we could do. That's the way we begin to heal. And so all of that has to come together. But I've learned to work with societies, different societies and different ways of healing. I guess the different kinds of doings. We have dances with little people. We have dances with Adobe. We have dances with the cornhusk faces. We have dances with all these different other doings. They're the healers. We're only the people that help them. And in that journey, we've learned, in the language, when you burn tobacco, what do they say? They don't say that you'll miraculously be cured. They say, that their mind, their spirit, you will be at peace. Healing will come, and when you're at peace and your mind and your spirit is at peace. And that's what we talk about when we talk about healing. The physical things, there are times when some of those things are caused by life. If you work hard and you're in the forest, sometimes you may not come back when it gets cold, and death will come to you. But death is part of the journey of life. Sometimes it's just natural. And we've been convinced and taught that death is terrible. But in our ceremonies, we're taught death is only part of the spirit journey. You come from sky world. You allowed to walk on this earth for so many days. And when the darkness comes, then now you go on your path. You go on to your spirit journey back to the sky world where you came from. So just death is only a continuation of the journey of all that we all will make. It's a way of understanding the world now we live in. And that's, if anything, that I have learned, this idea of that our mind and our spirit, our identity comes to peace. I feel good for myself that I speak the language. I will, but along with that comes with the teachings of being humble. Sago Guanyuguas, Tommy Porter, he always talked about Oklahoma people, that we walk in this world and we walk in front of the Creator and we're humble. We don't stroke ourselves and say, "This is look at me. This is what I am. I'm so knowledgeable. Almost like the Creator." We don't do that. We humble ourselves in front of the people. We can only share what we have learned. And sometimes what we learned helps us to understand it in a different, and we can share that. And then we help the people to understand our minds, generate how many years we have invested in learning. We gave that to people the best we could. That doesn't make any person way up there above the rest. We're taught in our world that everything in this world is equal. Elders, children, no one is more important than the other. We're all important. And that's what we need to learn. Elders have a responsibility. Children have a responsibility. Mothers and fathers have responsibilities. And if we all do that together, as a people, we're stronger. So when we talk of healing, it's the whole package. That when we understand all of that and those things and we can work to make it come together, can you imagine how strong our people will be? And one of the things I will tell people, I don't know if I said that in this discussion we had when we make the film or the interview, but one of the things that I've noticed on my journey, Ganawage, we've come so far along the way. In 80 years ago, there was almost no identity of traditional way in our community. There were some traditional people, but the whole concept of Haudenosaunee wasn't around. We didn't have a lot of that. And slowly over the years, things began to happen and people began to invest time into regrowing this concept of identity. Then the immersion started and the language began to change. And you see now immersion programs all around. Young people are beginning to speak, talking to their children now, doing the best they can. People are all going, when I was a kid, everybody went to churches and they didn't go to longhouses. Very few families went. Now everybody goes, young people, everybody goes to the longhouses and nobody goes to churches. That doesn't mean that the church is a bad thing. What I tell people is just, what I was saying is a lot of young people in this whole kind of thing, now they take all of these things, they got all the pieces, puzzle in front of them of identity. But one of the things I would tell people is don't take these puzzles and piece it all together. And then the glue that melts it together is anger or hatred. Don't go and say, "Oh, I hate the church." Don't go, "I hate white people," or "I hate these ones," or I hate each other. We hate each other because they think a little different from us. Where does peace and where does a good mind come in? So we need to go beyond that and use this, try to find our path to having a good mind, being at peace, being respectful. And then we will heal as a people. Then we will be strong. My wife wrote here, she said, one of the things you forgot is, amongst our people, is we have our own names. Colonial people came and said, "Oh, you can't use you're not important. You're only important if you have our names." So they say, "Oh, call me Charlie." Well, my name is Ojit Zagara. That's my spirit name. That's who I am. My grandchildren, our grandchildren, they don't have English names because they have their own names. And now we've gone from a time when we thought English was more important than our own. Now we've gone the opposite direction and we're saying we are important. Our own language, our own names is important. And why do we need the other stuff? We only have them because the uncivilized ways that came tells us that you can't be civilized unless you follow their path. And I only call it uncivilized because it's just a term I use. It's just not our way. I believe that when they came here, we were civilized. We were the civilized people. We lived with nature, in the way of nature, in the world of creator. We were civilized. We knew how to live in nature and with nature and, and amongst each other. And we could survive in the way the creator made us to be. And so I think all of these things put together, we need to use them. If you got your own name, use it. Don't throw it here. Don't throw it on the side of the path on the road and say, well, this other name that I have is more important. Pick up your name, put it at the top and say, this is who I am. You will be stronger because of it. All of these little things make us whole. And when we become whole, then we become real and we achieve inner peace and knowledge and solid of identity. I often tell people, we can't, I remember one of our old chiefs telling us years ago, you can't walk through this world with a divided mind. You can't walk through this world and say, well, I want to be native, but I like being white too. Nothing wrong with the white ways, except it's not ours. We need to be whole. We need to walk through the world with one mind. And when we're a whole inside of us, we can live with the other world. But we have to know who we are first. We can't be struggling with our identity and saying, well, I like being this one, but I want to be that one too. We can't walk through the world with a split identity and a split mind. We'll never be strong. And I believe, when we talk of healing and health and being strong, for Native people, we need to start with our roots. Plant the seed of identity inside our hearts of our children, in your own heart, in your own spirit. And when you're whole, when that has come together, then you will be strong and you will be whole. And I believe that's where healing comes from. For me, I'm 70 years of age. I've been learning about been on my healing path for 45 years, maybe. And I won't go to anybody and say I'm the most fluent Mohawk speaker. I'm just like a little child. There's so much of the language that I don't know yet. And I make all kinds of mistakes. But you know what? What I do know, I believe in. What I do know, I use. And I make a mistake here and there. Big deal. The creator understands what I'm saying. And I'm always ready to learn. I'm always ready to continue to learn. But I believe in what I've learned about ceremonies. I will live by that way. And all the other things. That's what makes us whole. Do the best you can. And walk in the world humble. I'm always embarrassed when some people call me I'm an elder. I'm only seven. I'm a kid. I'm only 70 years old. And I only know a little bit, but what I do know, I try to share. And that's what's important. There are young men and women in Akwesasne and different communities that are in their 20s and maybe 30, and they know 10 times more than I'll ever know. But all I can do is know what I do know and live by that. I never will pat myself on the back and say, oh, look at me, I'm a healer. I'm not a healer. I have learned to work with certain things. I learned to burn tobacco. I believe in that. And the words I use, when we ask for that healing, the creation is the healer, not us. We're only the vessel that speaks the words to carry the mind, and then impart in and ask for the healing to come through the natural world, through the earth. Those are the healers. We're only the helpers. So I guess with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Oh, hi. That's so important to remember. We can be the facilitators or helpers, but there are other beings that are really coming through and want to do the work for us and through us. So before we go off to have some lunch. We have Vicky Boldo and Mo Clark who are going to share. And just for the purposes of this circle, we won't take questions today, but Vicky, if it fits into what you want to share, maybe you could tell the folks a little bit about how to make a proper offering to an elder or healer if they want to, if there's certain cultural knowledge that they're seeking for their own well-being. But that being said, I will hand it over to you, Vicky, and thank you.
Thank you. Listening to all of that, so many of the kind of the same thoughts with what Alicia had sent out. You know, this is kind of what we're going to be looking at in the day, and I'm really grateful that I hope that I've been an honorable student. Because I've just been so fortunate, and it took me a long time to get to that point of I think being okay with myself, learning to really start loving myself, and coming to that point of realizing, oh, I guess that's a little bit of what this whole journey is about, is really we're so kind to strangers. We are often so giving to others, and we're so incredibly hard on ourselves. And so when I hear all that's been shared so far, it just resonates so deeply, especially having navigated the world, you know, coming into a world that I wasn't received in that way of being such a gift. You know, the more that I've received teachings and understandings of how beautiful it is, like in the Cree way, that within the like in that parenting bundle, and those teachings of just the beauty of being gifted with a child. And that wasn't so much my trajectory, but it took a lot of work to recover from a lot of that violence, all of that abuse and everything, that where I was as an infant and a young child, and through my adolescence, and navigating the world until I made that connection with my birth family. So for, you know, the first 3 decades of my life, really asking those questions all the time of, you know, who am I? Who am I? And yet I'd already started having exchanges with elders and knowledge keepers, and being welcomed into community, and over and over and over, so many just putting their hand to my heart and saying, you know, stop running or stop chasing, like, you know who you are. And I guess that really came clear. It really resonated when I did receive my spirit name. And so, like, when I went out on the lands, and I was at a conference out in Treaty 1 territory, and we went out to Manitowoc, which is a really, it's ceremonial land, sacred lands, and the elder, there was pipe ceremony, and when he came out of, when he finished smoking his pipe and looked over and said, you know, I have your name. And about 3 weeks before, when I was working on my presentation, it was the very first time that I was going to share anything about my healing journey. And it was really hard work doing all that excavating and asking a lot of questions and sitting with my biological uncle and getting more understanding. And a friend of mine was with me. I was kind of rehearsing my presentation, and she said, well, if you knew what your name was, what would it be? And I said, I'd had dreams. I had these dreams all the time as a child. I would dream a lot about flying. And in the dreams, I'd be like running a bit, and then I jump and the wind would get under me. And in my dreams, I got better at it over time, of like being able to like get into that wind and let it bring me up. And there were moments where I was like up over the trees, and they were like just such moments of freedom in my dreams. And then I had these dreams too of like being on the back of these, what I want to say is like the Thunderbird, these immense flying creatures, and being on the back, and again that freedom. And so I said I thought that I'd like something really powerful like that, Thunderbird woman, or she who flies on the back of Thunderbird. And I said, but knowing me and how I am and what my life has been, it's probably be something like gentle wind. And we kind of laughed that off. But there I was out at the Petroforms at Manitowoc, and the elder finishes smoking his pipe and looks right at me and says, I have your name, and says, it's Gentle Wind Woman. And I literally like fell on the rocks, and I laughed and I cried. I was like hysterical. But again, it was that had been happening throughout my lifetime of having thoughts or dreams. These things come into me, and then sitting with someone and that validation would come. But I think since that moment, that really was like an amazingly powerful, pivotal moment of really, for me to finally make peace with myself and say, like, you do carry these things, things, like stop all the time looking, running and chasing and trying to collect those things from out, because the spiritual connection has always been there, and that's what helped me. It's what's brought me here, right? And the anger, I had to work a long time on getting over all that. And some of it was very much righteous anger, but I still needed to move beyond that anger to be able to become responsible, right? There's a big responsibility in being a helper, and it's the humility, as Otsutsukawa said, of never, like, not putting ourselves higher or better than somebody else. I'm just incredibly honored and privileged all the time that I get to accompany others on their journey because of, the little bit that I know because of what I've lived through. So that's where the peace comes in. So I guess over time for myself in sitting, wanting, in those moments when I wanted the teachings, I've been really blessed to have, I think life has really gifted me with what I did need. And partly that was because I was putting it out there, knowing that I needed to be closing that gaping hole in me, and that I wanted to become more and more whole. And so I've always had these really gentle teachers, mentors, the elders, the knowledge keepers, but just these really gentle people who've come on my path. And it's so beautiful to have some of you here today. And one of my other really important teachers is there in the crowd as well. And Elaine has been so important on my path. And it just, yeah, I really want to express that love and respect. And I think those gentle teachers taught me things when I was so fearful of, like, how do I ask for something? I was so incredibly afraid to ask for help or to mess it up, to do the wrong thing, because I had lived my whole youth learning to navigate, to keep myself safe, to stay away from the perpetrators and the danger, to stay out of the way of violence, to be invisible. I had learned how to keep myself, try to be invisible. And so all of you, Joseph and Otsagara, Kathy, Donnie, Mo, Elaine, so many of the students at Concordia, so many people just allowing me in their own loving ways to sometimes muddle through, to make mistakes, but not to be a harsh scolder, because those that were the harsh scolders, and there were times where I guess I needed to hear some harsh words, especially in moments where I got stuck in, when I go down the rabbit hole and get stuck in like the boohoo, woe is me, and go more and more giving my power over to like being a victim. And that becomes really heavy to carry. And so there were times where people shared with me of like, there is something you can do. And in ceremony was a big part of that. And being told over and over again when we go into ceremony of, we're going to let go of what's not serving us, in a good way. We're going to let go of that. And I always joke around in saying, often in kind of that Eurocentric way, we're kind of, we're supposed to somehow carry the burden or something and learn and keep pushing through that. But no, it's, we heard that this morning in the opening of how loving Creator is, and that it's about getting to right relationship. So I'm really fortunate and so grateful to have received those teachings and to have a little bit of understanding of that now. And so when, I don't know, I've been fortunate again to say that because I've had those gentle teachers, really loving and compassionate and empathetic, and it's always, I think it's always a good thing if you can get some understanding of the person you want to approach, of what nation they're from, and maybe what some of the traditional ways are of like requesting, when you want to have them share something with you. Is it in giving medicines or giving cloth? Often, Joseph, I gift cloth or ribbon, or because I know he's going to go into the lodge with those things. So it is good to learn those things. But I guess what I want to say is, when it's done with good intention, when it's done in a loving way, a good teacher, I don't think will ever shame you for not knowing. So that would be my message, Kathy, to what you were asking is we don't know all of those things. And yes, it's good to try and do your work and learn what that is. But yeah, we have, sometimes we make some of my best learnings have come through my mistakes. We need to make mistakes. And I guess that's what I would have, if I look back, and I have no regrets, but if I look back and I have those reflections sometimes of what would I maybe have liked to have had different, and it would have been to grow up more connected in the culture and the teachings and that as a young child, and to have more more understanding, where I might have had cared for myself in different ways. And those again are teachings that I've learned like out here on these lands, listening to the young women and the women's teachings and such beauty in that. So I'll leave it at that because I know our time is ticking on. Thank you for giving me that space to share.
Thank you so much, gentle wind woman. And I love your story of your name. When I was involved in a community of healers and counselors in Victoria, BC, and when I told them that I was moving to Montreal, they said, "Oh, you have to find Vicky Boldo. You have to connect with Vicky Boldo." And so actually Creator made that happen even before I got here, and it's been just such a great pleasure and a great soothing for me to work with you over the years, Vicky. And one of the things that you've really taught me in hearing your life story a number of times is really how nature can help a little child who's trying to escape violence and harshness, and particularly the tree. And I think of those beautiful, big cedars and Douglas firs on the coast. And you and I both lived around the same community when we were younger, and we didn't even know each other, but how those trees kept you safe and gave you shelter. It just speaks to the imagination and the resilience and the magic that children have to be able to work with Mother Nature to be nourished. So thank you for everything you've shared. And yes, everyone, now we are on native time, but that's fine. That's just what we do. And if you need to go get a sandwich or a drink of water, feel free. And we really hope that you will come back at 1 o'clock and hear the youth in conversation about the teachings. And now I'd like to hand the talking piece over to Mo, someone who I value greatly and who has so many different teachings and learnings. And a few of the things that I've really appreciated about you, Mo, is how you've really created space for our Two-Spirit and queer LGBTQ community to be able to participate in ceremony and to receive love and care and recognition here. And also how you've integrated sound and music and rhythm into your work, which heals many hearts. And so when I teach about, like, to people, how do you process experience, because that's what healing is. Like, when we get all jammed up, so many things have happened to us, and we don't take the time for reflection and meaning making, and what we call like processing these experiences. Lots of things, we can get all jarred up, we can say that we're anxious or this or that. And So I really believe that part of the healing momentum is about moving energy, and you do that so beautifully, you know, with rhythm, with voice, with dance, movement, so many just delightful and really embodied ways. So I hand it over to you, and we look forward to your sharing.
Hi, hi. Well, now I'm going to sing, dance, and do a clown show for everybody with that introduction. But I'm just sitting on my couch in my humble living room in Jojage, and hoping that the neighbors don't tap their brooms on the floor, which happened quite a bit at the beginning of the pandemic when I found myself doing, shows all the time in my living room, until I finally went downstairs and I talked with my neighbor, and I just said, look, this is who I am and this is what I'm called to do. And I'm not doing it past 9 p.m. and I'm not doing it before 9 a.m. So I hope that you can find a way to enjoy the rhythm of the drum, and I appreciate you and I respect you. Um, and I'm feeling just really grateful to be listening to what everyone has shared, and to be holding those words in my heart and in my mind and in my body, and to really be reflecting on, for me, how important the gentleness of elders, of belonging, of being invited into the circle, um, when I haven't always felt like I've belonged there, how important that's been, and how important initiation. I feel like one of the great losses of colonization and the fragmentation of our times is that we've lost a lot of those initiation ceremonies. When we can be held, when we can be witnessed, when we can be loved, when we can be acknowledged for who we are and the gifts that we carry in this world and what makes us important and valuable. And I think of a lot of the suicide, and I think a lot of the early losses in our communities, because the young ones don't have that opportunity to be witnessed and to be seen and to be valued in those ways. And even though I didn't grow up really knowing much about my culture or about language, I always had a connection to the land. And I think about the river, I think about the trees, and I think about the ways with which land has always provided a landing point and a safe space and protection and witness, and that mother energy, to find voice and to find that space. And I often say that my first language was song, because when I was little, I barely spoke. I was really shy. I was really sensitive. I mean, I'm still very sensitive, but I've learned to use that as a gift and as a strength and less of a weakness. And so it was really through song, and it was really through activating that vibration in my body, in my spirit, in my voice, in my heart, in my belly, to be able to find that stillness, to be able to find that alignment between sky and earth, between all the directions, through the ancestors into the future generations. And I really look at song, and all song. I love singing gospel. I love singing pop music. My dad listened to country music. I know all of Garth Brooks's repertoire. And then it wasn't until I found this beautiful Tehuegan and I received the gift of the drum that I discovered a new relationship to song and to sound, and to the different medicines that songs contain within them, and that through singing and activating those songs, those spirits and those medicines, they become part of me, they become part of my bundle. And I'm always amazed at what songs will want to be sung in different moments and how they become the messengers and they become my teachers and they become my healers. And through those songs that I carry and that carry me, that's a way to animate healing, and that's a way to animate gift giving. And I really see song as gift. And so when someone shares a song with me, I feel like they've shared a very, very strong lineage of all the times that that song has ever been voiced and sung and remembered and dreamed, of the origin of that song and where it comes from, what lands, what waters, what trees have heard and have received those songs. And I was gathering medicine with my Dene two-spirit kin, Barrack Many Wounds, this summer. I was so happy to be able to go back to Treaty 7, and Barrack lives, well, is based right now in Tsutsina, which is the lands that have really been taken over by Calgary, by the city, but it's an urban community. And so I went home and I wanted to gather sage, because we do a lot of medicine gatherings, and last summer I wasn't able to go back to the plains to do the medicine gathering. And so Barrack took me out onto the land where he's feasted and sweat and done vision, and we were followed by the dogs, by all the beautiful res dogs, our helpers, and we were able to gather the medicines. And so we offered our tobacco, and I wanted to offer song. And in particular, I wanted to offer the Dene healing song that I had received through Dene's sister from up in the north, Kira Dawn Colson, who does a lot of suicide prevention, and she does a lot of work, and I feel that she carries the spirit of the great white bear with her. And she had received this Dene healing song in a dream, and when she called up one of her aunties after waking up, and she sang that song, and her auntie told her that, that's a really old song, my girl. And that song has been brought back through you. And so thank you for remembering this song. And so I wanted to share that song because I also wanted to share the medicine of that song for our sister Nina, who's Dene Nuvialut, and who I get the opportunity to sing with a lot. And I was able to teach that song to Nina and to gift back part of the bundle that she was taken away from as a 60s scoop. And so I was thinking of her, and I was thinking of the healing for her, and I was thinking of the healing of Barrack and all of our two-spirit kin, as well as myself, and just wanting to give back to the land. And after I sang that song, Barrack, he turned to me and he just said, I think that the land has missed song, and the land has really needed our songs. And I really feel this way right now, that we need to go and we need to sing to the land, and we need to sing to the babies, and we need to remind them, and we need to remind ourselves of how connected we are. And in singing those songs, how much the lands of our bodies need those vibrations and need those energies and need that healing right now. And I think also of one of my elders, Bob Smoker, and one of the teachings that he always used to share, which was such a simple teaching, but it has so much value and so much purpose. And I think in that process of being adopted, when we think of kinship and sacred adoption as one of our natural laws, one of our ways of Wagutowin, which is kinship beyond our nuclear family. And I just think of all the people who have adopted me, and I've adopted into my family, into this bigger family. And Bob always used to say, I'm gonna need you as much as you're gonna need me. And just that very simple premise of reciprocity and of value and of kinship and of exchange and of how humble that teaching is from someone who carried so many gifts and so many teachings and ceremonies and songs. And this was the gift that Bob gave me after we'd only met once. And I kind of thought, who am I to receive such a beautiful drum? And who am I to receive such a beautiful gift from someone I barely know, but someone who saw in me that gift and that capacity of voice and of song. And so I want to share this song as a way to close up this morning and as a way to gift all of you some of that medicine, that it may help to integrate, help to land what we've heard today. And through the vibration that will be carried through these wild and wonderful computers, through those hydroelectric dams who are carrying that electricity, through those crazy internet wires that are under the oceans, those signals that are passing through the skies and through the clouds, through all of those connections, may this vibration reach you. And perhaps may it help to bring some of the healing that you are needing. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's one of my aunties, Cheryl Arondel, who always says, through Joseph Natauhau, use your words. And I think once we know what we are asking for, we have to use that as the prayer that's going to strengthen our voices and our hearts. And in a sense, a knowing of what it is that we want and we need. And if we don't know how to ask for it, how will we ever receive what it is that we need? And so for me, that's really what prayer is. And that's really what these songs are, kind of the activation of those prayers. Hey, merci, karanas konten.
Yawagoamo. And honestly, throughout this time, I've just been thinking about the right word to kind of conclude this. And I feel like, thank you is just like not enough for just all of the knowledge, just the teachings, and just everything that you've shared with us today. I think that I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone of how much it's appreciated and how grateful we are for just you all being here and just sharing everything. And I know for myself, it's what I'm going to be thinking for for years and years to come. And just Nyawagoa. And I know we are really, we kind of went over the time there, but I think just as a conclusion, today a lot was shared. Each single person shared, especially a lot more of like personal and important parts of themselves. And I think in what Vicky was saying, especially as an offering, I think it'd be great if each single person that is here, if possible, if you can turn on your camera as an offering and something to give back to the people that are here, and just Nyawagoa. And I love this. I love seeing all these different faces, and I'm sure everyone who's there as well greatly appreciates it.